All right, good evening, everybody. I'm the Pet Man, Matt Morrow. Welcome to Football Focus Weekly, the playoff bracket release special. I do this show every year when the brackets are finalized, and we kind of go through the western part of the bracket. However, if you are watching this in the eastern part of the state and there is an eastern matchup that you want to bring up, feel free to bring it up, and I'll give my thoughts on it. But I will tell you, I study a lot of the West. I don't study a lot of the East. I know some East teams, but you're not going to get a lot of East information right now. So I want to say that first to start off the show. I've seen a lot of questions out there about why certain teams got in, why certain teams are seated higher than others. The biggest thing, if this is your first time watching us, use the comment feature. If you're watching on Facebook, you leave a comment. YouTube, you leave a comment. And Twitter usually works. But here and there, it doesn't work. But if you're on Facebook and YouTube, post your questions, your comments, your feedback. I'll go through those throughout the show and I try to address as many things that are questioned. And then other people watching may be able to answer, your questions in the comments as well. Um, but I think this year, I think the NCHSAA did a good job of at least kind of keeping people updated on where they were in the bracket release process. If you went to the NCHSAA website, they had a checklist on the homepage of where they were in the seating and bracket posting process, which is something new. I've never seen them do that before. It's a little bit of transparency that's nice to have, so people kind of know when things will be final. So between the preliminary bracket release and the final release, there weren't a lot of changes. The only one that I've seen mentioned was Newton Conover in 2A opting out of the playoffs, and that's their prerogative. And then I think it was RS Central was able to get in because Newton Conover opted out. But other than that, there weren't any changes that I were aware of, at least on the western part of the state, as far as the playoffs go. So I see everybody kind of getting on. We got a few comments in the bucket. But before we get to those, I'm going to switch the view here and take a look at 4A West. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the matchups just to see, because this might be the first time people are seeing this, just to show you who's playing who, and then we'll come back and then we'll break them down. So number one seed in the 4A West bracket is Irwin out of Asheville, and a lot of people are probably wondering, how did that happen? Well, and this is going to be the case for a lot of these questions. Irwin won their conference, and the NCHSAA also released a list of the final RPI rankings, which I'm going to pull up as well. It won't be on screen, but I'm going to pull those up just for reference so I can share with you the final RPIs if you haven't seen them. You might have missed those. Those were also released at the same time. And they must have moved where they put them because I can't see them now. But I had them downloaded. Let me look on my phone because I had them downloaded and I'm going to try to reference those here. But the long story short of it is Irwin had the highest RPI out of the conference winners. So that's why they got the number one seed there. Okay. So Irwin's playing Parkwood. The 16-17 matchup is a mountain matchup between Pisgah and Smoky Mountain. West Charlotte Hunter Huss is the 8:25 game. Freedom West Rowan 9:24. The winner of those games will play each other in the second round. Then you got Dudley against Ashboro and AC Reynolds against Central Davidson. The winner of those games will play each other. Kings Mountain East Lincoln. Very good matchup there. And Jam Robinson Northeast Guilford. The winner of those two would play each other. Hickory Tuscola, and then Statesville Franklin. The winner of those two games will play each other. You got Oak Grove and North Iredale, which is the first time North Iredale has made the playoffs in 18 years. So congratulations to them. And the winner of that game will play Crest and Eastern Guilford. West Henderson and South Rowan at 7:26 matchup, and North Lincoln, North Davidson is the 10:23. The winner of those two games will play each other in the next round, and then you got Ashbrook and Northwest Cabarrus. And I misspoke. Irwin's in 3A. I'm on the wrong screen. We're doing 3A first. Ashbrook and Northwest Cabarrus will play in the first round, which is a playoff rematch. We covered that game, I believe that was 2 years ago when they played in the first round at Northwest Cabarrus. This game will be at Ashbrook, and then the winner of that game will play the 2, South Point and Montgomery Central. So we'll start with 3A, and then we'll switch to 4A. I got my screens mixed up here. But anyway, so Irwin Parkwood, you project Irwin to win that game. Irwin is an athletic team. They just came off a victory over AC Reynolds last week. That's what got them the number 1 seed here. Parkwood with Coach Mobley, they have really made some progress in rebuilding that program. So it's good for them to get into the playoffs and see what it's like. But I think Irwin's a heavy favorite here. So we got comments flying in. So let me address what we got going on here. And I still got the same problem on Facebook. I'm gonna have to send StreamYard a message because I don't know who is who. So anyway, I'm assuming that's J-Man because he's talking about Mooresville, or maybe that's the chat administrator. I don't know. So we're going to do like we did on Friday Night Live. Put your name and when you're posting from Facebook so I know who you are. We got one request to break down the split conference seedings. Yeah, split conferences are a big issue, and when they've been a big issue for a long time. So when you have split conferences, so we'll use the Queen City Conference as an example because that's the one most local to Charlotte. So West Charlotte, West Mac, and Harding are in the 3A portion of that split conference. And then you've got everybody else in the 4A portion of that conference. So West Charlotte won the 3A portion of that conference. So they are seeded as a conference champion because they won that section of the conference. That's how you can have 2 conference winners from one conference. Is it fair? In some cases, it's not fair, in my honest opinion. But, that's the system that we have. Next year, when we go to the 8 classifications, it's going to be even a bigger issue. And, there have been some, I know there's been talks in the past about how to handle split conferences. They put in a stipulation that if you're a split conference champion, that you should finish in the top 3 of the overall conference in order to be seeded as a conference champion. So at least there's that, because if you don't finish in the top 3 of overall conference, then you get seeded by RPI. So there is a little bit of wiggle room there, but I know people want more of that. No, that's how it is, and it's going to get worse with 8 classifications because the whole reason for split conferences is to limit travel for those schools. I can tell you when I played at Harding in the late 90s, we were a 3A team, and that was when I think everybody else in Charlotte was a 4A team, and they didn't make a split conference. We got moved to 3A, and we played in the South Piedmont 3A with Concord, A.L. Brown, Northwest Cabarrus, and those guys. So that's why we have split conferences, because you can't just move schools further to play further teams that are in their same classification. So it's going to be a problem that's going to exist for a long time, unfortunately. Okay, let me get down to some more comments. Ring chasing season, yes, that's what it is. We got a West Charlotte fan here. Yep. Jasiah Gray's a heck of a player. Absolutely. Yep. And just like I said with West Charlotte, that's why West Charlotte moved up, because they were considered a conference champion. Same thing with Freedom. Okay. Same exact thing. So that's a good point right there. Yeah. It's not going anywhere. Split conferences are not going anywhere. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. Um, but anyway, let's see. We got some more here. Oh, okay. J-Man, chat administrator. Um, yeah, Huff got a 5 seed. We're gonna do 4A here in just a second. Just bear with me. I started on 3A. I meant to start on 4A, but thank you. Whoever said that, thank you. All right. Back to the little breakdowns here. All right. Pisgah Smoky Mountain is a mountain matchup. Smoky Mountain has been playing well. Their coach is the former coach at East Gaston who had some success the past 4 years. It's his first year at Smoky Mountain. And Pisgah hosting that game. For everything that has happened in the mountains, Pisgah was one of the hardest hit areas. I think it's great that they get to host a first round playoff game. I think that one's a toss up. And those teams are really on it. That's why it's a 16-17 matchup. I think those teams are on the same level. And, whoever wins that game will face Irwin most likely in the next round. Now, West Charlotte and Hunter Huss. Now, we talked about this on the show with the panel. I thought Hunter Huss had a shot to get a good matchup in the first round against a team outside of the area that may not be able to handle their speed and athleticism that they pose a challenge with. But it's a tough draw for Hunter Huss because they got a team that has a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism, and that's a great matchup for West Charlotte. I can't sugarcoat that. As a matter of fact, you look at West Charlotte's setup here. I think West Charlotte, that probably won't say this publicly, but they have to be ecstatic about their setup because they are set up really well to make a deep run. Because you got them against Hunter Huss in the first round, and they're playing the winner of Freedom and West Rowan. And it's no offense against either one of those teams. I think they're both well coached with good players, but you have to think West Charlotte would be favored in that matchup against Freedom or West Rowan. And then you see who it's next down the line. They would get the winner of Irwin and Pisgah Smoky Mountain. You'd have to think West Charlotte would be a favorite against Irwin. No offense, Irwin's a number 1 seed, but a lot of people don't see them, on that level. And then it lines up for them to get into the quarterfinals here, December 6th. And then that's when they could potentially see, a really strong team out of this next quadrant of teams right here between Dudley, J.M. Robinson, Kings Mountain. I think would be the potential 3 teams that they could see down there. So I think West Charlotte is excited about, their draw because, right now, the third round, assuming that, they make it there, they'd have to go to Asheville and play Irwin, which, I think they could live with that, matchup right there. So, yeah, I like them to make a deep run here, as long as, barring no injuries or anything. And then Freedom West Rowan, I think that's a really good first round game as far as competitiveness goes. We had the poster that mentioned Freedom got into the playoffs as a 9 seed because of the split conference. So, are they really a 9 or are they more so maybe more of a mid-tier team? And I think West Rowan could pose, some problems. They got some athletes that can make some plays. That next matchup, we got Dudley and Asheboro, a 528 matchup. The winner of that game is going to play AC Reynolds and Central Davidson. So, Dudley, you got to like, especially against Asheboro. Asheboro, really struggles with guys that are, have a lot of speed and kind of spread offense, athletes kind of situation. AC Reynolds has had a really interesting season. Them against Central Davidson. I know their best player, Max Guest, who has moved to quarterback, got hurt in their last game against Irwin. Hopefully he'll be good to go. If they have him to go, I'd like them to win that game. And then they would go to Dudley after that. Kings Mountain East Lincoln is a really good first round matchup. There'll be a lot of people at that game. That should be a really big attendance game. That's a rematch from a few years ago when East Lincoln came into Kings Mountain and knocked them off on their way to their state championship. So there'll be some Kings Mountain fans really wanting to get some revenge for that. Um, you think start looking at that game. It, I really think that's going to be a good one. East Lincoln will have to find a way to try to move the ball consistently against a Kings Mountain defense that has been playing some really good football. Um, and then offensively, Kings Mountain will just have to make sure they don't, cause themselves mistakes. Protect the football and maximize their possessions in that game. They've got some guys that are playing really well on that team right now. And then the winner of that game would face J.M. Robinson Northeast Guilford. J.M. Robinson, is undefeated on the season. They had a couple tough games toward the end of the season, but I think those games are what they needed. Playing Northwest Cabarrus and then Mount Pleasant kind of got them ready for this playoff run. So we've got a potential second round game with J.M. Robinson Kings Mountain, which would be a heck of a second round game. That's a game I would, like to see in the third round. But, in playoffs, you can't hide from anybody. At some point, you're going to have to play somebody really good. And that's a heck of a second round game if we get that. And the next one, we got Hickory and Tuscola. I think you have to really favor Hickory there. But the winner of that game plays Statesville and Franklin. And Statesville, gave Hickory their best game. Statesville was leading that game in the third quarter the last time, they played, which was last week. So, it's hard to beat a good team twice. And, this is a potential, as a potential spot for Hickory. They're going to have to face a real test, provided that the seeding holds on those winning matchups there. But I like Hickory and I like Statesville in those two matchups. And we got Oak Grove against North Iredale. I like Oak Grove. North Iredale is really great for them to get into the playoffs. The first time, like I said, since 18 years ago. But Oak Grove has been playing some, really good football. And I think that matchup, really sets up well for them to get to the second round. But then they would play a Crest Eastern Guilford winner. And I like Crest. Crest, I think this is one of those teams. You start looking at teams that might have been overseeded, like some of you guys said due to the split conferences. I think Crest is underseeded, but that's just the way the system works. They played a really tough conference, and we talked about that before. Teams that are coming out of tough conferences that, kind of beat up on each other, getting lower seeds. And, some of the top teams don't want to see those teams. And this is one of those situations where Oak Grove, I'm sure, does not want to see Crest in round two. I like Crest. I like Crest getting to the third round there. And that could set up a heck of a matchup between Crest Hickory or Crest Statesville, which, that's some good football right there. That is some good football. All right, we got West Henderson and South Orland. I saw West Henderson's running back got hurt. He, I think he broke his leg. And he's out for the rest of the season, which is, really tough to hear. So, they're going to have to adjust on the fly. They already run first team, and they're a good team. South Orland getting in is really great, for that program. I don't know if South Orland has enough to pull an upset, but it's going to be interesting to see how that game goes. Losing your number one guy going into the playoffs is that's really tough, man. The winner of that game will get North Lincoln and North Davidson. And North Davidson has had an up and down season. North Lincoln's been very consistent. They actually finished very high in the RPI, but they didn't win their conference. Hickory won their conference, so they got a 10 seed as a result. But this lines up well for North Lincoln. I like them. If they got West Henderson, with an injury situation, that gives North Lincoln a chance to get to the third round here. In the lower half of that pod, we mentioned Ashbrook Northwestern Bears. It's a playoff rematch from a couple years ago. Northwestern Bears beat Ashbrook in that game 2 years ago. But this is a different Ashbrook team. They're a very strong defensive team. Northwestern Bears has one of the best running backs in the area that you don't know about. I know Ashbrook will be keyed up to really shut down the run game. It's going to force Northwestern Bears to try to beat them in the air. On the flip side of that, Ashbrook has been getting better on offense, all year long. Their running game has multiple guys that can, hurt you. The quarterback is a dual threat player. The Northwestern Bears has one of the best linebackers around in Jackson Forrest. He's a tackling machine. So that's going to be a good game. That's going to be a really good game for the first round. The winner of that game will play South Point and Montgomery Central. Winner, you got to like South Point in that one. It's good for Montgomery Central to get in. I think, that program, has done some good things. But I don't think they've got anything to pull an upset here against South Point. So that sets up a heck of a second round matchup between either Ashbrook or Northwestern Bears against South Point. That's a great game. If it's Ashbrook, it'd be a rematch of a game earlier this season. And if it's Northwestern Bears, you got a very, very well coached team by Eric Mormon that would be going on the road into South Point. So, really good stuff. All right, let's jump to 4A, which is where I meant to start. I'm sorry. So you guys that were holding out for 4A, here we go. All right, first off, we got Grimsley, which, I know what some people saw that they got the number 1 seed over Weddington. There was a bit of probably consternation because, Grimsley really, really plays well at home in the playoffs. I think when they've won their state titles or when they have not had to go on the road. And we, and I say we because I'm in Charlotte, we in Charlotte have had, playoff things happen up at Grimsley. So it was a really close margin between Grimsley and Weddington in the RPI, but Grimsley got the nod. Really, really talented team. They got some really strong offensive firepower. And they're hosting Western Guilford in the first round, which, they know them. That's in their area. That's a Greensboro area school. But you got to like Grimsley right there to win that one. And they take on the winner of Reagan and Southeast Guilford. Reagan, was really high in the RPI, which is why they're 16, but they finished 4th in their conference overall. So interesting. They lost their quarterback early in the season, and he's been out. He hurt his knee, so they've been playing with a backup quarterback. I think I like Southeast Guilford to win that matchup, or at least be favored. In my opinion. So yeah, Grimsley Southeast Guilford potential second round matchup. But I mean Grimsley's really strong. I like them, to go pretty far here. And then Eric Henriquez is right on time saying let's go Porter Ridge. And it is them facing Charlotte Catholic in the first round. When I saw this potential matchup, the first thing I thought was big fundamentals against big fundamentals because both of these teams, I think, are really well coached. Their guys are going to be where they're coached to be. They're going to run the ball where it's designed. You're not going to see a lot of, mistakes or self-deprecating mistakes on both sides. Charlotte Catholic is a conference champion. They won the Southwestern 4A. That's why they're an 8 seed. Porter Ridge got in on strength of their RPI. So I like Charlotte Catholic. They won some big games. They've been in a lot of close games against, tough teams. So I think they're battle tested. I think they're ready. I think they're ready to make a little run here. So the winner of that game would get Palisades and Page. This is Palisades' first foray into the playoffs, and I think they got a good matchup here. Paige, there's a lot of teams kind of coming out of the I think it's the Metro 4A. And there was a question posed to me on Twitter, like, why did the Metro 4A get 7 out of their 8 teams into the playoffs? And it's this answer is simple. It's the RPI. So it's not a split conference. So this is where the RPI kind of has an issue, because they got a lot of teams that have decent records in that conference, and the biggest part of the RPI is the opponent's winning percentage. So when you've got a lot of teams that have pretty decent records, this can happen. But you have to take a look at it in a vacuum, because who did those teams play? Are they kind of beating up on each other and splitting the records? And then you had a lot of maybe around 500 teams of getting into the playoffs. Did they play a lot of softer non-conference schedules that helps boost their opponent's winning percentage, or boost their own winning percentage to help them get in? So there's a lot of ways to manipulate the formula here. But Paige gets in. Paige only has 3 wins on the season, and they got a 24 seed, and that's where I think some coaches and some fans have an issue. But that being said, I like Palisades to move to the second round here, and that'd be a really great matchup. If we got a Catholic and Palisades matchup second round, that's some really good football right there. So then we've got Huff hosting South Iredale, a 5:28 matchup. And I really like Huff. I really like Huff a lot. To go a long way, to be honest with you. South Iredale, it's really great for them to get in. I think they had a lot better season than a lot of us anticipated. But it's a tough deal right here, to play a Huff team that's really motivated to go out and do something special this year. The winner of that game will get Mount Tabor and Independence, which, this matchup, when it was, posted as a possible matchup, a lot of people got excited. A lot of people think this is the best matchup overall in the first round in the entire playoffs. You've got a ton of talent on both sides here. Independence being a 21 seed. They're a victim of the RPI. They're not a 21. In my honest opinion, a lot of people I think would agree with that. Mount Tabor being a 12 is, probably close to where Mount Tabor should be. They deserve a home game in the first round. They are a really good football team. I think they're well coached. They got some high-end talent. That's going to be a heck of this should be a third round game. Let's be honest about it. And then we got a viewer saying it's going to be something serious. Yeah, this is third round level stuff in the first round that we're getting here. I just saw Independence. They defeated Butler. I think it's now 2 weeks ago. What can you say about Jaden Jones that hadn't been said? I mean, if you're Mount Tabor, you're going to load up. You got to load up and try to slow the running game down. I mean, if in the playoffs, you've got to try to take away what a team does best, which, probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. The trick with Independence is they can throw the football too. They just haven't had to do it that much because of how good, the running game has been. But Justin Little, Brian Crowder, Sadat Grant, and those guys can really, make some plays, throwing the football. Mount Tabor has been in big games this year. They played a couple of teams, that are ranked higher really well and almost knocked them off. So they're not going to be afraid. If anything, and I think Mount Tabor is one of those teams that embraces, the spotlight, and they want to be, on this level, and they want to take on, this challenge. So if you don't have anywhere to go, I would go to Mount Tabor Independence. I can't even give you a prediction. That's gonna be a heck of a football game right there. All right. Mallard Creek is a 13 seed. They're going to be hosting Lake Norman in the first round. Lake Norman, having a season that, I think they did really well this year. They lost a ton of seniors last year to a really good team. And they lost in the first round last year to Independence. So for them to bounce back and have a good season and to get in the playoffs again, I think Coach Oliphant and those guys did a good job. Mallard Creek, they're really strong defensively. They can run the heck out of the football. This is going to be an interesting matchup because I think Lake Norman, has some capability of slowing down the running game. But this might be a time for Mallard Creek to use some of those guys that they have at the receiver spot because I think they're gonna have some matchups in the passing game that they can take advantage of. And you might see that. You might see Mallard Creek decide to put those guys in one-on-one situations and see what they can do. But I like Mallard Creek, to win that game, and that could possibly set up a rematch last year. Watauga knocked out Mallard Creek in the second round last year. We could have a rematch because Watauga's playing Ragsdale. I like Watauga to move past Ragsdale and possibly set up that second round rematch, which I'm sure Mallard Creek would really relish because, they felt like they let one get away up there last year. Watauga's really well coached. They, scheme you up very well. You have to do your homework because they will throw about 45 different formations and 12 motions and shifts and all kind of stuff. You have to really, really, be smart and know your tendencies versus formation against Watauga from a defensive standpoint. But we got an interesting matchup next. East Forsyth is the number 3 seed overall in the West 4A West, and they got number 30 Butler coming in to play them. And we kept saying on the show that Butler was a team that no high seed wanted to see if they got in. Well, Butler got in, and East Forsyth, they were just in a barn burner of a game against West Forsyth. They ended up winning that game 49-42 last week. So, if Butler is able to run the foot, this is the big key here. If Butler's able to run the football, this game is going to be close because Butler, if they get their run game going, they are really good. I mean, really good. They pushed Independence to the limit when we saw them 2 weeks ago. East Forsyth can throw the heck out of the football. I think Baker, the UNC commits a heck of a quarterback. They got some really good receivers on the outside that can go get it. I think we got a contrasting style kind of game here. I think Butler, what they do well, can help keep that East Forsyth offense off the field. This is not your typical 30-3 matchup here. This East Forsyth is probably saying, well, how did we get this? Because then you look and see who's next potentially for them, and it's West Forsyth, the team that they just had a heck of a game, with. So not only do they have to play a really good Butler team who's, not a true 30, but then they could potentially play their rival that they just beat by only a touchdown, a week ago. So East Forsyth probably saying, how did we get this kind of draws at 3? But then West Forsyth and Cuthbertson, West Forsyth, they have some things they can do offensively that can cause some problems. But Cuthbertson, man, defensively, they are a strong team. Just seeing them on film, obviously we like the linebacker Hunter Eichelberger. We took him into Queen City Senior Bowl, but they've got some other guys, especially on the D line. There's a young man, I think his name is Sully, his last name, and then Cole Webster committed to James Madison. Now West Forsyth has a really good offensive line, so you like line play. this is the game you want to see. This is going to be some real clash of the Titans, no pun intended, because the West Forsyth's called the Titans, but this is going to be a clash of the Titans on the line of scrimmage. And Cupperson really can run the ball with Mason Iovino. So yeah, that's a good first round matchup right there. All right, then we got Mooresville, 6th seed. Some of you guys watching from Mooresville, I know you've been kind of waiting on that. So you got Mooresville hosting Alexander Central as a 27. I really like Mooresville here. Alexander Central's offense, I think, kind of plays into what Mooresville does well as far as stopping the run. They're a heavy run team, so I like Mooresville to get past that. Then they would face the winner of Northwest Guilford and Olympic. Now, this is a interesting game here because I mentioned Northwest Guilford, and they're an 11 seed, but I think this is an even matchup. Both of these teams, I think, are really about on the same level. Olympic going 8-2 this season, and going on the road up there. I don't think they're afraid of that matchup. They're probably happy that this is what they kind of got. I won't predict them, but that I think that game's a pick 'em. That's really close to me, in my honest opinion. Olympic with Chance Cato, Alex Wiley the fourth on the outside, Devin Walker running the football, and then D'Angelo Hall at tight end is always a threat. They've got a lot of different ways to attack a Northwest Guilford team. Yeah, that's a good matchup. I think Mooresville's draw here. I think they're happy with that. I could see them getting, to the third round and then potentially facing out of that top pod we just discussed, an East Forsyth or a West Forsyth or Butler. I mean, it's not out of possibilities that Butler could get on a run and really be having some upsets here. So that's an interesting part of the bracket right there. All right, then we got Asheville, the 7 seed, taking on Marvin Ridge as a 26. And I'll be honest with you, another team probably excited is Marvin Ridge. We covered them when they played Sun Valley, and Sun Valley is a high seed. You see this down there as a 15. And, they lost that game 13-10. And Marvin Ridge isn't your typical 26. They've got a really good offensive line. They got some guys on defense that can be impact players. Thinking about Manny Lewis, who's a well-recruited player. Zach Lee at running back. Braden Rediger at the quarterback spot. And then I mentioned the offensive lineman. Asheville, I've seen them. I've seen them over the summer. Their quarterback is really good. He really throws the ball well on time. They got a few different receivers that can make plays. But I know they have trouble with slowing down the run game. I know AC Reynolds especially had some success running on them earlier this season. So that's an interesting game because Marvin Ridge can really run the football with that offensive line. And that's one to watch. That 726 that's one to watch. So the winner of that game would get Northern Guilford, the 10 seed going up against West Cabarrus, the 23. And the unfortunate thing for West Cabarrus is they're playing without their quarterback, Jared Street, who announced he's out for the season because of an injury. And it's going to be tough. When we saw West Cabarrus, they can run the football and they go to kind of a wildcat situation when they took Street out of the game. So, that might be one of their main ways that they run the football. But their running back, Fuller, is a heck of a player. They're really fast on defense. And that's going to give them a chance. If they're going to win this game, it's going to be a low-scoring defensive football game against Northern Guilford. So that's that whole group right there is real interesting. That's an interesting little pod there. Then you got Sun Valley, the 15 seed, taking on TC Roberson out of Asheville as the 18 seed. I like Sun Valley. Sun Valley's a team that nobody talks about. They're really good. They're 8-2. Their coach Ryan Smith, I really like him. Jaden Morrow Jones at receiver, Zach Cullen as running back. I think they're tough on defense. Brandon Creech at linebacker spot is a player. They're just a tough, well-coached football team, man. The quarterback, Noah Lineberry, gets the ball out fast. He's very accurate. Their receivers make plays. They run. I like what they do on offense. It's not something you see a lot. It's kind of like a West Coast kind of offense where they really get the ball out fast. A lot of short kind of routes, but if you give them one-on-ones, they'll take them down the field. So I like Sun Valley here. That could potentially set up a rematch. Weddington, because Weddington is playing A.L. Brown as a 31. Of course, I like Weddington here. It's one of the favorites, but conference rematches, man. Weddington and Sun Valley. That game was close for a while before Weddington, was able to pull away in the second half. So, that's interesting. That's interesting right there. So, a lot of you guys are watching, which I appreciate. But if you got questions or feedback, feel free to shoot it out there. We're going to finish up with 2A West and then 1A West before we get off here. So we got about 10 minutes. But if you got feedback, comments, questions, feel free to post those there. And I hate the Facebook interaction. It's not working, but I'm going to send StreamYard a message. I don't know what's going on there. All right, we're going to go up to 2A West, and I'll run through that real quick. Reedsville, the number 1 overall seed, is going to host, as I said, Newton Conover opting out. It is now RS Central as the 32 seed, but I'd like Reedsville to move on there. They'll get the winner of North Surrey and East Rutherford. And East Rutherford is a team that I've liked a lot this season. They would be my favorite team there, even though North Surrey is a really good football team. I think East Rutherford has a lot of kind of things they do well offensively that could give North Surrey some problems. Then we got Bunker Hills, the 8 seed, hosting Hendersonville. And then the winner of that would take on Brevard and Anson. One thing I know about Anson is they've got a lot of athleticism, and they got a running back in Jazeer Griffin who is woefully underrated. I think he's a heck of a football player, man. He's a big, strong kid that can, really carry a game offensively with running the football. But I like Ant. Yeah, I'll say it. I like Anson. I like Anson, and I like Bunker Hill there. If I had to give predictions on that. Then moving on, we got Salisbury hosting West Davidson, who, I like Salisbury here, and this could potentially set up another rematch with Walkertown and Surrey Central. And we know Walkertown knocked off Salisbury, in the week 1 of this season. So, the playoffs, man, are funny. They always kind of bring you back to somebody you saw earlier this year. And I think that's what we're going to get there in the second round of Salisbury and Walkertown. And that's going to be a heck of a football game for sure. We got Forest Hills and Lexington, a 13-20 matchup. I saw Coach Deese from Forest Hills. He posted online, and he's excited. He's pumped up and ready to go. So I like Forest Hills there. I think he likes what they got here, and I would be with him. I like how this sets up for Forest Hills. If you remember, Forest Hills made a run to the 4th round last year, and I think the way this sets up for them, they could be making another run if they stay healthy. They get the winner of Randleman and East Gaston. Randleman was upset recently by Trinity, and Trinity is let me see if they got in. Trinity, I don't see Trinity, so I don't think Trinity got in to the playoffs. So East Gaston is probably saying, well, if we bring our A game, if they're a little off, maybe we got a shot here. But I like Randleman to move on and face Forest Hills, and that'll be a heck of a football game if that happens. All right, then we got Monroe as a 3, hosting TW Andrews. I like Monroe. They consistently make third, fourth round of playoffs every year. I know they want to break through and get to that state championship game, but I don't see them going out early here. Too much talent. They got a really good senior quarterback in Kagan Chambers. Some other guys that I really like on that team, including Jordan Young, just committed to Clemson. The winner of that game is going to get Burns and North Stanley. That's a good first round matchup right there. Burns has some guys. Of course, they got Marshall McGowan, who we took in the Queen City Senior Bowl as a defensive lineman, but he also plays quarterback. He's a really talented young man. They got some other guys, Xavion Wilson running the football. But North Stanley has some guys too. Jalen McCoy is a really good receiver on the outside. Sean Swindle is an offensive lineman, and then Aiden Alsbrook is a really good linebacker. That's a good first round matchup. That's a good first round matchup right there. I can't really predict, who's going to pull that one out. All right, you got East Surrey and Southwestern Randolph. East Surrey, still has some really good talent. They've had a good season. I like them there. They take on the winner of West Stokes and North Forsyth. How do things always end up like this? If West Stokes wins that, Coach Logan will be facing his old school in the second round of the playoffs. Wouldn't that be something? And it's setting up that way. Crazy, man. Storylines are crazy. All right, then we got Mount Pleasant and West Lincoln, a 7-26 matchup. The winner of that would take on C.S. Davidson and Vandy's. To be honest with you, I like Mount Pleasant here, and I like Vandy's. Vandy's has been a team that has been able to rise up at key times this season. And I think we're gonna have a Mount Pleasant Vandy second round matchup, which will be a heck of a game. But don't sleep on Mount Pleasant, man. Mount Pleasant took two of the best teams in 3A to the limit in Northwest Cabarrus and Jam Robinson. They lost to Northwest Cabarrus by 2. They lost to Jam Robinson by a touchdown. So as a 7 in the 2A bracket, and nobody talks about them, they just kind of sit up here in Cabarrus County in the woods, and they just go and do their thing, and they go to work. They can run the football very well. They got an electric guy in Ethan Dempsey who does a lot of things for them on both sides of the football. They've got a strong defense. And that team is a tough football team, and tough football teams win at this time of the season. So don't sleep on Mount Pleasant. They're a dark horse for me to make a run here. Lincolnton, as a 15, is hosting Maiden. That's a heck of a football game. That'll have a lot of people at it. That's a toss-up to me. I don't know. That's a toss-up. And the winner of that game is going to play the winner of Shelby and Moorhead, who I like Shelby here. And no matter who Shelby gets in Lincolnton or Maiden in the second round, there'll be a lot of fans down at Shelby for that second round game, because that is a big area game that will have a lot of interest in the Cleveland County area extended. So that's 2A West. And real quick, we'll run through the 1A West. Mount Airy, perennial state title contender, hosting Thomas Jefferson. You got to like Mount Airy there. They get the winner of our buddy, Coach Dub, Robert Washington Mountain Island Raptors, hosting Bishop McGinnis. This is a rematch. They are in the same conference. Mountain Island defeated Bishop McGinnis the first time around. I think that was up at Bishop McGinnis. So this time, conference rematch at home for Mountain Island. It'll be interesting. Conference rematches are something else, man. They are something else. So either way, the winner of the game will have to go to Mount Airy in round 2, and that's always a tough place to play. All right, South Stanley, the 8th seed, is hosting Avery County. The winner of that game will get Star Mountain Andrews. I think South Stanley and Star Mount second round. That's going to be a good football game. South Stanley has some athletes. Star Mount's got some really good talented players, and they got tradition. Star Mount probably feeling they're a little underseeded as a 9, but that's how it goes with the RPI and everything. All right, Corvian, located here in Charlotte. They got a 5 seed. I'll be hosting Elkin in the first round, and they'll play the winner of Mitchell and Drawn. And I like Corvian to get past Elkin, and then probably favor Mitchell there. Drawn lost a lot of guys to graduation. So I think we had a Corvian Mitchell second round matchup there. We got Cherokee and Carver, a 13-20 matchup. Good to see Carver getting back into the playoffs here on the good side of things. Winner of that game will play Eastern Randolph in Swain County. I think I like Cherokee here, and I like Eastern Randolph to get past that one. Then we got a 3:30 matchup in Murphy and Highland Tech. Highland Tech getting into the playoffs, having some success on the gridiron this year. Winner of that will get Allegheny or Christ the King. And I'll be honest with you, Christ the King has played some teams tough. I think they were the team that played Corvian the toughest this year. And Allegheny has to be careful because Christ the King is a team that has had success. And the way they play, they've got a really good young running back. They can possess the football and they can cause some problems. So I think I'm gonna go Murphy and Christ the King for the second round there. Bessemer City, our friends down in Gaston County, get a 6 seed right here. They host South Stokes in the first round. Winner of that game will take on either Robbinsville or Thomasville. Both of those programs have a lot of tradition and success in their history. I like Bessemer City to get past South Stokes. We know some things about Robbinsville and how they control the football. I think we get a Bessemer City Robbinsville matchup in round 2. Absolutely. Thank you right here. Yeah. I think Nancy Candy's got a shot. I meant everything I said. I think they got a real shot there in that matchup. Thanks for watching. Culturally Controversial Podcast. I have to check that out, man. Drop a link if you can. Let me check it out. We like controversy a little bit on CFI. Anyway, you got North Rowan as a 7 seed hosting Cherville as the 26. Winner of that game will take on East Wilkes as a 10 and Albemarle as a 23. North Rowan is one of my favorite teams from Rowan County. I think they're well coached. They got a dynamic guy at the quarterback spot. I think that might be a little bit much for Cherryville. Albemarle has some guys. Kane McClendon at the running back spot, Zion Geiger as a receiver and a DB. East Wilkes, I have to be careful. I don't know a lot about them, but I know those two can cause some problems on both sides of the ball. All right, Union Academy, you had a good season. 15 seed here to get a home game against Hayesville. And the winner of that game will play either Mountain Heritage or North Stokes. I like Union Academy. They've done some good things this year. I think they're really well coached. They got some guys like Michael Hughes that can make some plays on the defensive side of football. I like Mountain Heritage here. Mountain Heritage is a very good football team. I like them to get past North Stokes. All right. So that being said, that's our playoff bracket show. On the show this week on Football Focus Weekly on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, we'll dig into some of the local matchups in depth. We'll probably break out the brackets again. We'll focus on the local matchups. And I say local, I mean Charlotte metro area. And we'll dig into that a little deeper. I'll let the guys kind of weigh in on their thoughts on the playoff brackets. We'll talk about, the seeding process. What could we do better, as a state? But that being said, it's playoff time, man. I know I did this show by myself tonight because at this point, when you get your matchups, I know all the coaches across the state are probably, meeting and, taking a look at film and putting together scouting reports and, all that stuff. So I didn't want to bother any of the guys tonight because I know they're busy. So anyways, I thank everybody for watching. This will be available on the playback. So feel free to share it with anyone that, probably didn't catch it live because they're doing, different things. This Sunday NFL's on and all that good stuff, family time. So we'll be back Wednesday night, 8 p.m. on Football Focus Weekly on these same outlets. You can always catch us. And then Friday Night Live after the games. Well, no, I'll take that back. No Friday Night Live this week because I actually have to go out of town. So producer Brandon Black will be live tweeting from a playoff game this Friday night. I'll retweet them, but I won't be doing Friday Night Live this week. Only the Wednesday show, Football Focus Weekly. So appreciate everybody watching. Everybody have a good Sunday night, and we'll see you Wednesday night. Appreciate it.